Hey y'all, I hope you're having a great week. Today I want to tell you a story about an expensive jar. An expensive jar that was filled with some expensive ointment. Read of this story in this expensive jar in the Gospel of John, chapter 12, verses 1 to 9. And I'm going to read that to you now. 6 days before the Passover, Jesus therefore came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. So they gave a dinner for him there. Martha served, and Lazarus was one of those reclining with him at the table. Mary therefore took a pound of expensive ointment made from pure nard, and anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped his feet with her hair. The house was filled with fragrance of the perfume. But Judas Iscariot, one of his disciples, he who was about to betray him, said, "Why was the ointment not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor?" He said this not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief, and having charge of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put into it. Jesus said, "Leave her alone, so that she may keep it for the day of my burial. For the poor you always have with you, but you do not always have me." Now, I really love this story. There's lots we can get out of it. Like the fact her wiping his feet with her hair was a really provocative kind of statement. Because typically, if your hair was down, that was kind of like nowadays, maybe a woman wearing something really tight-fitting or really revealing. So she's already making a statement there with how she does it, how she wipes his feet. You think about a foot massage, usually they're a sensual thing. You don't just go up to anyone and give a foot massage. So there's all these different things kind of happening. But the thing I want to look at, and the thing I want to point out to you today, is the fact that I think Judas gets a bad rep in this story. And that's because none of the other disciples speak up when Judas says this statement. And for me, I kind of feel like Judas would have said, why wasn't this sold for 300 denarii? And if you don't know, 300 denarii is usually like a year wage, pretty much. So it's a lot of money. It could have been used to provide a year of food for someone who was poor and out of work. And Judas says this statement, and you don't hear any of the other disciples say anything. There's quiet. There's crickets. I think there's crickets because they're kind of agreeing with this. They're kind of like, well, Judas, he's got a point. And they're sitting there thinking. Because I don't feel like Jesus would have jumped in straight away. There would have been that awkward pause that we sometimes hear at parties. Or when someone says something that's a bit out of line and everyone's just quiet because you don't know what to do. Or if someone says something that's really true, but everyone doesn't know how to do with it because it's really hard truth. So you have this quiet. And then you have Jesus says what he says. How this is a good thing, and let her do what she's doing, because you don't always have me with you. Let her keep this for my burial, so she can bless me. So she can do something that's on her heart. And the reason I want to focus on the other 11 being silent is I wonder what we would do. Would we be silent? I think throughout our life we have moments where stuff happens. Moments where we could speak up. Moments where we could stand with those who are on the outside. Are we willing to speak up in those moments? Or are we willing to be silent? Because sometimes if we're silent, we're agreeing with what the other person said. If we're not presenting a different opinion, a different viewpoint that's inclusive, that shows God's love, that shows the love of the cross, and we're just silent instead, that's agreeing with the other opinion. And that's what the disciples did here by their silence. They agreed with Jesus. And I wonder what we would do if God let us. What we would do in these kind of moments. And I want to challenge you with that this week. I want you to read this story for your own in the Gospel of John, and then sit and wonder what you would have done if this expensive jar was in some sense wasted wasn't used for the poor, wasn't used for the needy. It was used for Jesus. And what does this story have to teach us? What does it show us about our silence and how if we're silent, we're complicit to lots of wrong that happen? Maybe it's time we start using our voice to speak up for the love of God, to help spread the love of God, to stick up to those who are on the outside, like Jesus does over and over again throughout his gospel. May God's grace and peace be with you.